What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Got a real special guest on today that pretty much spent his entire life in prison from the age of 14 to now. He's 49. But anyway, Carl, tell the people who you are, talk a little bit about you, and we're going to get into your prison story and your story of redemption, all right?
Okay. My name's Carl. Um, in prison, I went by Lowdown. Um, I'm 49 years old. I'm from Maryland. Um, I, had a regular upbringing when I was a kid. Um, Normal childhood. I didn't come from like the hood or something. I had some, you know, parents. Made some relatively, okay money. Not rich, not poor. And then I just had regular. I didn't really ever know my real father, so I grew up with a stepfather. Basically, me and my stepfather, there was a miss when I was growing up. Um, it's where a lot of my authority problems came from, and I about probably when I got into the eighth grade, um, things started to change in my life right there, and from that, I ended up going to juvenile hall when I was 14. Spent a majority of my teen years in the juvenile center from 14 to 19. When I got out, right before my 19th birthday, things seemed like they were going to start picking up for me and stuff. And August 27th of 1994, I got in a car wreck accident, killed three people in a car wreck, drunk driving, and that sparked a 30 year just downfall, demise off into the prison system. I went in, got worse, came out a couple times, brief stints of like 3 months on the street, after, decade, get out for a little bit, go back, do another decade or so. It went like an 8 year sentence, an 8 year sentence, a 10 year sentence, and a 12 year sentence back to back. So, and then I'm just now recently released from incarceration. I'm actually on ankle monitor still right now. Um, I was released about 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago or so, and and now I'm just out here. Now I'm just out here trying to get it back together. You know what I'm saying? I feel like a caveman. I feel like I'm super far behind. It's crazy.
Listen, man, I understand. Let's talk a little bit about when you were 14. Where'd you end up going to a juvenile hall at? It was at Maryland.
No, it was I had moved up here. I had moved up here probably like in the sixth grade. So I moved up here. My parents wanted to come up here and build a house. My mom and my stepfather. So I got up here, and like I said, around probably about the seventh grade, I started kind of catching a chip on my shoulder. There's a school up here. I went to like our hoods. We got a couple hoods up here in Alaska. We got like a place called Mountain View and Fairview, right? I mean, considered to like hoods probably out there, or like up in Baltimore, Maryland, or things like that. You know what I mean? Relatively soft when it comes to that, but still considered the hood in where we're at. So I ended up going in the eighth grade. I ended up going to the school right outside of that, of that area, and called Clark Junior High, and it was pretty much where all the knuckleheads went and stuff. And I was a little shy, little blonde hair, little pretty boy, little kid, mama's boy, all the way. And I ended up. I was telling this on a thing last night. There was this kid in my school, and he was a bully, man, and he since I was real quiet and kind of shy, naturally that's what the bully gravitates to. And so, anyways, man, he tried me, and I fought back. You know what I'm saying? We were outside fighting in this on the side of the school, and then somebody was like, "Yeah, the hall monitor's coming," So we broke apart. Well, right across the street is this store called Red Apple, and that's where everybody goes to catch their fades. You know what I'm saying? So if you're gonna box at school, you go across the street right there. So everybody was like, go across the street, go to Red Apple. And then this kid was like, nah, man, and it was like he wasn't used to somebody fighting back, and everybody was like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I went immediately, like overnight, I went from being this little shy, little unpopular little mama's boy to the next day when I came to school, everybody wanted to know who I was because I stood up to this kid. And that was like ultimately my downfall because um I whatever lack of attention I was getting at the crib, um now all of a sudden I was feeding off of it. You know what I'm saying? Like I wanted to, the more and more I would do wrong, the more and more shit I would steal, all these things, man. Like I would get more accolades and more like brought into the fold of some sort. Like, so anyways, that put me quickly into stolen cars. So I started getting in with the wrong crowd of kids. And they used to have this car lot up here called Alaska Sales and Service. It's still here, but it had these key boxes hanging on the windows of the car, like where the keys for the new cars would be in. And then some guy taught me how to get these key boxes off the window. So I started jacking these cars, going through the hood up here. And it was like I was just getting praised because I was this crazy ass white boy that would do anything, you know what I mean? And I thrived off of it. So by the time I ended up in juvenile hall, I come into juvenile hall when I'm 14. Hey, knocking off. So it's my dogs. So I go in when I'm 14 and at the juvenile center up here. And like I said, by all accounts of like juvenile centers probably out in New York or Baltimore or California, YA, all these things like that, it's not really like super, super hard. But to me, it was like when I went in there, like I had a mission to be the guy, you know what I'm saying? And so if that tells you how I lived, I mean, I was a wild kid. I always boxed with the juvenile COs. I always boxed with the adult COs. You know what I'm saying? I've been a cell extracted a grip of times that did mad time in solitary confinement. So, like I said, so I was in there from 80, 88 or 80, 88 to 1992. I was in there. So, and I just like kind of went and just evolved from like a petty, from like a little petty crook into a full blown criminal in the juvenile center. And, I always think about how I would have actually turned out if I had been out in a place where, like, we had killers in the juvenile center, but not a lot. They compared to like other states, man, like, it's like already an adult jail inside the juvenile center in some states. So, um,
Eventually,
but still,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
but I was just gonna say, nevertheless, it's still a place where you're locked up, you're tormented, and you gotta live with your you gotta live with your sin and stuff, and for whatever reason, man, I gravitated, and it was a natural thing for me, man. And I did good at it. So much better, man. Like it's like I feel so brand new out here. It's like I was everything in the joint. You know what I mean? I get out here. I mean, I had made a whole life inside prison. You know what I mean? I get out here, I'm like literally like a baby out here because I don't know how to really get on the computers yet. I don't really know how to run the phone yet. So it's super challenging for me coming up out of prison, man.
Takes time, man, and eventually you'll get it together. I'm going to talk a little bit about your prison story and your prison experience. A lot of people don't realize that Alaska prison system is brutal. That they were in there torturing dudes and doing some vicious things to people. How old are you when you walk into that Alaska prison system for the first time?
18. I was 18. Right at the end of my eight right before I turned 18 or 19, right in that area, I got in an altercation with somebody. Pulled up on my homeboy's girl, and my homeboy had just been locked up, and his girl. We were all sitting over there at his girl's house, and it was crazy because I actually went into the adult jail the very first time to see my homeboy because he had got locked up. And he was like, man, go over and sit with my girl, April, you know? So I go over to sit and I bring my homeboys over and we're sitting there. And he was worried about somebody coming and messing with his truck since he was locked up and couldn't defend it. And he had one of them little lowrider trucks with the fat, you know, little tires, rims that stick out on the sides. Anyway, so we were sitting over there, and whoever decided to do it, they decided to do it that night. And we were all sitting over there, so we ended up chasing the people out of there. And then we lost them through this neighborhood. And then when we were creeping out of the neighborhood, they pulled up behind us. So there was a kid in the car that had a gun, and he was pussy with it, you know what I'm saying? So I just grabbed the gun from him and I jumped out and ran up on the dude's truck and hit the window with the gun, and it shattered the window. And I was like, stay away from April, stay away from April. And he speeds off and almost knocks the gun off out of my hand into the car. So we jump back in the car, and as we're going down the street, I fired at the car 3 times and hit the truck that they were in. And that was my very first adult crime.
Then
I went to jail.
how much time do you do on that?
Man, I tell you the truth, I did like 90 days on it, man. It was my first adult crime. So they ended up reducing the sentence to brandishing a firearm in a threatening manner, you know, from like a misconduct involving a weapon or whatnot.
We'll
And
talk about.
like,
I want to talk about the 3 people that die in the car accident. Tell me about that situation, and you know who were the victims.
okay, so the victims was my best friend, which his name is Brett Dwyer, rest in peace, homeboy. And and then there was a 15 and a 16-year-old old kid in the other car, named Otis Ritchie and Fred Cook, rest in peace. So, you know, we were all, I mean, 2 different worlds, you know, whatever, but we were all out doing the same thing, you know what I'm saying? And so me and my homeboy, it was, you know, I had for a brief moment had got my life together where I was working. It was right after juvenile hall and stuff. And after that first thing I just told you about, I kind of got out. It kind of spooked me, you know, because I thought I was going to go away when I shot at the other car. I thought I was going away for a minute. So, and it was my first time in adult center. So when I got out, I, you know, I kind of was going to take it on the straight and narrow for a second. You know what I mean? And I mean, not for a second, forever, you know, but it didn't last that long. So, but anyways, man, I worked for this paving company up here, and on a Friday, my boss gave me uh my boss gave me the day off early on a Friday and paid me my paycheck. So one of my other buddies knew these people down up here that owned this car lot. So I was going to take my paycheck. My boss let me off early with the agreement that I would come back and work the next day on Saturday. So anyway, so I go to this car lot and I go buy this car. I bought a Malibu, and a 73 Malibu. And I drove it off the car lot, and I went back to the crib, and I was laying there. My best homeboy at the time, Brett, the one that passed away in my car, he called me later on and he was like, hey man, what's up, man? I met these girls, whoop, whoop, right? And he was 18, I was 19, and he had met some 27, 28-year-old chicks, right? So, you know, we go out, and I'll never forget, man, the mentor dude, this guy named Keone, that always looked out for me. He actually went from being like a buyer of alcohol for us to being like a mentor dude that took me in and helped me try to get my shit together, you know. So, but anyways, man, I remember him saying, man, when I hung up with my homeboy, because I was gonna go meet him out on the strip and go ride around with him and these girls or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I told my friend, I was like, yeah, man, I just bought a car, homeboy, whoa, whoa, right? And he was like, well, let's meet up. So when I hung up, my friend said, my older friend, he said, hey man, Carl, don't be going out there drinking and driving and hurt somebody, man. You know what I'm saying? And I remember rolling over. I said, man, arrogantly, I said, man, I ain't ever been in a car accident in my life. Because I have been jacking cars since I was a kid. You know what I'm saying? So I was just like, and I said it all arrogantly. And I was laying on the living room floor, and I rolled over and knocked on the banister of the stairwell. Because I said, man, I ain't never been in a car accident in my life. And he goes, man, you better knock on wood. So I kind of laughed, and I rolled over on the carpet and then knocked on the banister on the floor, on the stairwell. And man, crazy, man. You know what I'm saying? So I go out, and I go meet my homeboy, and he had took the girl's car from the house where they were all at, this older lady. So then he met me out on the street, on the strip, in this girl's car. So we went out there, and we parked that car, and we jumped in my car. We rode around the strip a couple times, high siding and stuff, you know. And then so we go pick that car back up, and we go back to that lady's house. And we're up in there, and we're drinking, and we're having a good time. And she had a friend there with her, you know, and these are older girls, so we're just young, thinking we're doing something, you know how it is. So anyways, so the night kind of, it starts, the night's over, but I had asked the lady, I was like, hey man, um, can we stay the night here? I don't want to drive my car drunk. She says, give me your keys. I said, man, I ain't giving you my keys, but I'll let you, can we stay here? She said, yeah. So anyway, she, she lets us stay. I start messing around with her homegirl in the house. And then a phone call happens, and I hear them in the room start arguing. So it turns out that the girl had a man that worked on the slope, and she was messing with my homeboy on the side. And I guess he came home early, and he was uh coming home and wanted to, like kind of surprise her or something. So when I heard the arguing, they were arguing. My homeboy was like, he was like pussy whooped or something, you know what I'm saying, already. So he's just like arguing with her, pleading his case, like, screw him, you know what I'm saying? Like, so when he come out, she's like, get out of here, get out of here. So by the time we walk out the front door, the dude's pulling into the driveway. And then him and my homeboy get all into it, and the girl comes out, and she's like, get the F out of here, you know? So I'm like, come on, dog. So we get in my car and we speed off, you know what I mean? And when I came to this, I only took two turns, man. And so when I came out, I originally came out onto this street, Muldoon, and I turned left, and I was going to go around to where I live. And he says, go to my grandma's. Big one of the things I regret, because then I did a big ass turn in the middle of the road. I should have just kept going to my house, but I turned around and I went back towards his house, and I went through a light, got in the outside lane, and I was going down, and these kids were in a stolen car, and they ran a red light, man. And they were out partying, doing whatever they were doing. And they came, I had a flashing yellow light, and they had a flashing red light. And, as I was coming down the hill, I honestly, I seen the car, and I just remember him kind of rolling towards the intersection. And I thought he was going to stop. And he kind of looked the way he was about to turn, but he didn't look the way the traffic was coming. And it's a two-lane, two lanes going one way and two lanes going the other. So I didn't really honestly think he was going. So I kind of like pressed on the gas and said, don't go. I just remember saying, uh, I said, don't go, motherfucker. That's what I said. And but I didn't think he was going to go. And the last thing I remember seeing is him kind of like look back as he gunned it to get into the traffic. And bam, I tried to get out of the way, shot the passenger on the oncoming traffic. He got hit by another car, severed the driver's head. My best friend, he died of an aorta injury. And the last thing I seen him do, because you know how when you kind of block somebody with your arm, like, trying to like
Yeah, I
protect
know,
your
I
kids
know
or
what you're
something.
saying.
Yeah, so I just remember doing that, but I remember my friend was a big ass kid. He was like 6'4", 6'5", like 280-pound 18-year-old, man. It was my boy, man. You know what I'm saying? Dude had my back, bro. And but I just remember him, when I thought about it later, I just remember seeing his arm. And I think that when he put his arm up on the dashboard to brace himself, I think the impact, jolted him and ripped his artery inside his heart. So I jumped, I'm like, I cut my nose in half. I'm just like, I'm like in the middle of the street, and I'm trying to catch my breath because I knocked my breath out on the steering wheel, and my nose is cut in half. I don't even know it. I'm in shock. And I'm trying to breathe, and I'm trying to, I'm trying to breathe, and I was like confused, you know what I'm saying, just hella confused. And then I just heard this like blood curdling moan, man, like something I've never heard in my life again, nothing. And it was just like, oh, and it kind of brought me back to reality. And I looked to see where it was coming from. And when I turned around and looked back down the street, it looked like a 747 hit the concrete, bro. That's how much shit was all over the road. Like, I mean, and I was, and it was just like reality just comes back, and I run up and my friend he was laying in the passenger seat into the driver's seat, and he was trying to get out the open door. And I carry a lot of guilt for this, man, because I ran over there and I was trying to pull his big ass out the car. And when I was doing that, I feel like, you know, I carry a lot of guilt around, like, like the what ifs. And I was pulling on his arm, and nowadays I wonder, like, when I was pulling his arm trying to get him out the house or out the car, was I separating the cut, the inside of the tear or whatever. So I get him out on the street, and I'm like, yo, bro, come on, man, because we used to jack cars together. He's my homeboy, man. You know what I'm saying? We grew up in the juvenile center together, and we always would run. We get in car chases, we jump out, run, get away. And then this is like where my life just was like, where it like changed my life, man, because I was like, come on, homeboy, we got to go. You hear the cops coming and everything. And this time he wasn't going nowhere. And he just started shaking and started, like, convulsing. He choked on his own blood right in front of me, man. And as a 19-year-old kid, it's all fun and games, and you can play gangster and all that stuff until you see death, for real, for real. And that was my first encounter with it. And then now all of a sudden I'm responsible for it. So when I tell you I fell off into a dark place in my life, man, because of that, you know what I mean? I had to carry that burden, man. And at first I got hit with 3 vehicular manslaughters, but they were able to prove that the other car had ran through the intersection. You know what I mean? So I got that part dropped, and I went to prison. But that kicked off a 30-year ordeal, man, for me, man.
Time did you end up
Because
getting for that?
um I got I got a DWI. I got, they sold me the car without having a driver's license. They sold me the car without having insurance because it was my dude's friend. So they got me for all of those things. I ended up doing from, like, I got out on bail. I got on bail. I didn't actually start doing time and on the case until like 90 the end of 96. So it happened in August 27th in 94. And I didn't actually start doing time onto it until like the end of 96. And I did to the end of 98, beginning of 99 for that. You know what I mean? But with a bunch of time, I don't know how it goes out there for the way you do time, but, like, up here every 2 days you get 1 day off. So if you got a 3-year sentence, you do 2 years on it.
Yeah. Let me
So
ask, let me take you to the prison system, though. I know eventually you end up starting your own prison gang, right?
yes, sir. Yes,
What,
sir. I
what was the name of that gang?
low life.
Low Life. So what made you want to start your own gang? Was there racial segregation? Was there oppression? What got
Nah, Alaska was kind of like behind the times with that shit. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have, like, for a long time, uh, the blacks, mess with the whites, everybody messed with everybody, business wise, everything. We are all homeboys, right? And so they we didn't have a system like that. I'm actually the founder of the first born and bred prison gang out of the state of Alaska. So, but it didn't start out as a gang, you know what I'm saying? So the funny story about mine, the way this came about was I had just came off the streets. I was doing drugs, smoking crack, doing all this extra shit, man. And that's one thing I got out of my car accident. I got an addiction, man, because I got hurt. I got hurt, and it cut my nose in half and all this. They put me on painkillers, which sparked a whole new thing, that I had to go through in my life that I still actually fight today. You know what I'm saying? So, because it was very easy to face myself when I was high and not be able to face myself when I was sober. So naturally, I gravitated towards that, and that's what we get, right? So, anyways, man, um, I, I, my friend had came back. He had came back on a petty violation, and he had met some girl, and her parents didn't like him. So he was on a petty violation. He went to court, and he said while he was in court that the DA was banging on him and to his in front of his in front of his wife's or his girl's parents, and they already didn't like him, right? So he came back all hot, man. And I'm just laying up in the bed like he came in, he was like, man, they were making me look like a low life piece of shit and all this crap. And he didn't feel like that was validated because he was in on like driving out a license or something. And they just made him out to be like a murderer, right? So I'm laying in the bed, man, and I'm thinking to me like a DA will lie, cheat, and steal. You know what I'm saying? To get a conviction on you, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, and they're just like super nasty. You know what I'm saying? Every DA I ever met, man, they're on some other stuff, man. Just say some wild stuff, salt your character up, everything, just and just like ain't no better than the next criminal, man. If you gonna lie and cheat and steal to get a conviction, you ain't no different, right? So this is what sparks low life. So when I'm up there on the bed thinking, I'm like, man, ain't no way. If it came between being me and being some lying ass DA, I'd rather be me all day, And so, anyways, um, I I was like, man, I said, man, I am a low life. You know what I mean? And he was like, I was like, man, why you acting like that's some kind of shit? I was like, take the power out of it, man. That ain't no, that's not like some. I'm not. If it was between me and me being them, so that's what it is. That's what it is. So it kind of, and I just got this thing in my head like society thinks that felons, once you catch a felony or do some time, man, you're just automatically a dirtbag for the rest of your life. You're low life. You know what I'm saying? You're a scumbag. You know, and that's it. You can't get a job. You can't rent a place. I mean, all this extra stuff, man, tags you forever. And I just wasn't going to be binded by it, man. You know what I'm saying? And you weren't hurting my feelings by it. So if that was the line, that's where the line started. And that's where my chip on my shoulder came off and my authority problem really kicked in because it was like, dude. So I ended up, just as a way of life, you know, throwing up the mails every time and all of a sudden, man, over time, like people, the police is kind of what turned it into a security threat group, man, because over time they started seeing that all my homeboys, I was a well-respected inmate, man. You know what I'm saying? I always paid my bills. I was always stand up. I'll take it there if I got to. You know what I'm saying? I'll fight on the drop of a hat. I always, if I told you I was going to do something, I did it. If I did a business transaction with you, I paid my bills. You know, and you know, so naturally I already had, and I'm charismatic, and I got the gift of gab. So, anyways, man, and I was always a really, really, I'm 50 years old now, but 49 years old. So I used to be a really, really, really buff white boy, man, and physically fit, like burpees, 500 burpees a day type guy. So, and I just, you know, and I was just about it. And that attracted people of that nature into around me, man. So when the police started seeing this, and I'm always like, putting my hand and smacking like just that way of life, like it was a way of life. And pretty soon, man, the police caught on to that shit and turned it into a security threat group and boxed up everybody that had that, that had been associating with everybody, and they put us all on in segregation on the tag for gang for security threat STG,
Long,
and
how long did they put you guys in the hole for that?
that first time, man, it was 6 months. At first, just wrapped up probably about 15 dudes off the yard, and put us in the hole and put us on an investigation tag. And they can keep you in there 6 months on an investigation tag, or they got to do something, either charge you or give you a write up or whatever. So they put us in there, and like I said, and out of that out of that segregation, low life was born and bred. You know what I'm saying? I wrote bylaws, made a patch. You know what I'm saying, and just started recruiting. And next thing you know, we got a gang problem in Alaska in the joint.
You're the founder of the first prison gang in Alaska, but now that you put this gang together, are there other gangs starting to form now too?
Yeah. So right when I started, like, so up here, man, like when I was a kid, like the natives, really kind of had it bad in the joint. You know what I'm saying? Like they would get picked on for their native checks and things like that. And then these dudes come to realization like they're 85% of the prison population. You know what I mean? Up here in Alaska. So next thing you know, these dudes come together and they form the Native Brotherhood up here. So it was kind of like low lifes and the Native Brotherhood. That was the very first beef we had in the joint. You know what I'm saying? And and then from there, the 88 started. You know, the white boy clique. My clique was like biracial. You know what I'm saying? We had you know, I just had like a lot of the homeboys, and like I said, and that all sparked from back when we didn't have racial tension up here. You know what I'm saying?
I know one of your dudes is one of the dudes I interviewed, Toby. He was like tortured over there and stuff
Yeah.
like that. The violence in Alaska. What's the violence like? I mean, was there gang fights? Are you guys stabbing each other? I mean, what's going on over there?
Oh yeah. I mean, we naturally. I mean, it used to be fades. You know what I'm saying? We used to catch fades, man. It was like that, and then it. I mean, then over time, man, in the last 10 years, uh, everybody got a knife. Everybody's stabbing people, man. You know what I'm saying? It's went there now, because what happened is where we kind of naturally gravitated is they had taken us out of Alaska and they got these private contracts through CCA, Correctional Corporations of America, and GEO, right? So they send us out to these, they put us on Con Air and send us out to these private prisons, and then we got mixed with the other contracts, the Hawaiians, the Washingtons. They had some, you know, like some California dropout cats that were, you know, on a special need yard out in another pen. They had the Wisconsin dudes, the federal dudes. They had like federal dudes there too. And when you took a bunch of guys from up here that were pretty much docile inmates, you know what I'm saying? Like pretty much like uh it really isn't it really wasn't like it was in a, you know, like if you were to show up in Pelican Bay or something in California, you know. So it wasn't like that.
They
But as
started
soon as we got,
intermingling you. Now dudes are like they're learning different things about prison and knife
yeah.
fighting and gangs. So they kind of
Mm-hmm.
created their own problem in the Alaska Department of Corrections, from what you're saying.
Yeah, they created a big ass problem, and who do you think they blame it on? Yours truly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There was just a post came out. Now, you know, mind you, I've been on this walk. You know, I've been you know, dived off in my faith, been on a different walk for the last 8 years of my life. You know, um, but so you know, probably about 4 years into this, man. Um, you know, I've been changing. I've been in these programs trying to get my shit together, right? And they had did this thing up here where um had they were we had this Senate Bill 91, which was a bill that kind of gave inmates a little more leeway and help towards rehabilitation and things like that. And it would like make you where you wouldn't be violated right away, that they give you a second chance, things like that. Anyways, they were starting to implement this House Bill 49. They wanted to do away with Senate Bill 91, and then Bill 49 was something that would give longer sentences. You wouldn't be able to go to parole until you were like a certain like long ass time into your sentence, and then send us back out of state to the CCAs. Well, my wife got a link one time, and on the DOC, Department of Corrections DOC, it said, brothers and sisters in corrections, we got to stand up to this out of state placement. And then it goes down. And now, mind you, I've been on this kick. I'm doing good. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing good. I've stayed out of trouble. I've been about 4 years into this, and I'm doing what I can do to get home to my wife, because I met my wife, fell in love. She started, you know, she started preaching the word of God to me, started getting me back on track in my life, and by all means, you know, I wanted to feel that love and feel that freedom for once in my life, because I haven't never felt it, you know. So, anyways, man, so for these dudes to do this, it was, you know, hella uncool, man, because they said, brothers and sisters in arms, we got to stand up to this out of state placement, woo woo. And then it gets down to the bottom and it says these gangs were started out of state, but now they're Alaska's problems. And they got my picture at the bottom of it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, and then not only did they do that, this other CO uploads the shit onto a Matsu crime discussion, right? And somebody I had robbed got on the thing after he sees the post, and he gets on there and he says, that dude's Carl Vandenhurt. He robbed my crib and he used my gun to shoot at the police and all this stuff, man. And you know what I mean? And like, how did that benefit me, man? So when you're talking to Toby, man, when he's talking about how the the shit he was really talking about, man, was more or less on the police side and the stuff they get away with, man, towards I mean, like beat your ass quick stuff. You know what I'm saying? Lie. I mean, like you can't even stand up for yourself. You know, like
Times, how many times have you had the cops beat on you?
man, I mean, throughout my life, I mean, probably too many to count.
Prison cops while you were in prison over there.
I was actually involved in a situation, man. In 2012, I got into an argument with a CO, and you can read about this in the papers and stuff. So, I got into it with a CO, man, and he was cussing at the inmates, man, and I was sitting there, and I was like, man, why don't you watch your fucking language, man? And he said, and he goes, go lock down. And I was like, for what, man? For your language? For your conduct? And he was like, no, sir, I don't have to put your fucking ass down. And immediately, got everybody out in the day room, man. So I stood up and I slowly started taking my jacket off. And I'm like, you fucked up, right? And so I'm like calmly talking to him until I get my jacket off. And then as soon as I got my jacket off, I folded it up and laid it on the table, all for the theatrical effect, you know what I'm saying? And then I just charge him, you know what I'm saying, and start trying to get him on with the police. And then somewhere around the thing, he's telling me to calm down, tell him, calm, better hurt, And he was just one of them inmate or one of them cops, man, that come there and fuck with you every day and then try to hide behind the badge like they were just doing their job type dude.